And we're back to the Triple O Show. Thanks for sticking around. So, the good news, I was able to attend the first 3 days of Summer League. The bad news, didn't quite get a credentialing media pass. But, hopefully next year, we'll be in the...
You'll learn some things. Right. Next time you'll get a nice photocopier ready.
Right. We'll work on that. One step at a time. But so this was my first time ever attending the NBA Summer League tournament out in Las Vegas. And I gotta say, it was an amazing experience. It's basically Comic-Con for basketball nerds. Like, it is amazing. You've got, real fans there aside from, the kids, which if I have to see one more kid doing a Fortnite dance on a Jumbotron, I don't know what I'm going to do. But
just turn your TV off, man.
Yeah, the first day it was funny, and then by the third day, I'm just like, no more, stop. Like, I can only see white kids do the Millie Rock so many times. So, nonetheless, you've got, like, real people there because you don't have, like, a LeBron James, a Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. Those guys aren't playing. You've got guys like Brady Heslip and B.J. Mullins and Troy Capane, who, the average NBA fan doesn't know who any of those guys are. So, if you're paying money to come to these games, like, you're really invested. It might not be in... those particular guys, but whoever's on your team, you're excited to see, what rookies from last year, are going to potentially improve. What rookies did we draft this year, to see the potential? What other guys may make that, 14th or 15th spot? So it was just, it was really refreshing, to see the basketball there as well. One of the interesting things for me was the energy level or the effort throughout the games was the same no matter what the score was. You could be sitting there watching a game and have no idea that a team was down by 20. Mm-hmm. For instance, one of the games I went to was the Rockets versus the Warriors, and because we know those guys are, really good regular season teams, they don't particularly have, a lot of spots to fill, so they're not filling out their summer league rosters or doing a lot of scouting. And it was like a 2-point game, for the majority of the game, but everybody in the stands was just so bored because you didn't have any, big name draft players or guys from last year playing. I mean, Jordan Bell played, but he's exciting, but in the context,
so much.
Yeah. He's like a more athletic Draymond, so. Not particularly, the most exciting player that you're going to watch in that setting. But it was a very competitive game, but it just wasn't entertaining. Then the next game started. The Memphis Grizzlies played the Orlando Magic, and you've got Mo Bamba playing. You've got Jonathan Isaac and Jaren Jackson, and that game was so fun to watch. But Orlando ended up winning by 30. But had you not looked at the score, it was like, what's Jaren Jackson doing when, he's got Bamba on him? What's Jonathan Isaac doing, when Jaren Jackson's guarding? It was just so much more going on despite the score of the game that just kept you intrigued. So it was just very, very interesting to watch.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing. Hey, I'm booking my flight with you next year to check it out, but... that's one thing you notice just as a fan watching the game on TV. Really, Summer League is about the focus on the players. The teams are figuring out, how these guys can fit into a team dynamic, obviously. But really, we're just seeing raw talent out there.
Yes.
And really, guys that are, top draft picks, we want to see that they're validating those selections.
For sure.
Who would you say was, seeing them in person versus maybe your expectation in the draft or watching them on TV during the college season? Who impressed you physically, just seeing them in live action?
So I was upset because he was wearing Curry 5s, but Mo Bamba, you are way too tall to be wearing.
They make those in his size, seriously?
I guess so. There's no reason he should be wearing those shoes. But nonetheless, the length of Mo Bamba and Jonathan Isaac was just incredible.
Freakish.
Yes, like Jonathan Isaac might be an inch shorter. He's probably the same height as Mo Bamba with the hair. But just seeing those two guys stand, back to back together on the court, and then even adding the Jaren Jackson in there to watch that game, it was just so much length on the floor. Like you don't, typically you'll see one or two guys out there. You'll see like a Durant, with that or kind of length, or a Giannis. But to see two guys like that, and even for the Magic, they had Wesley Iwundu and Melvin Frazier, who were two guys were 6'5", 6'8", but they probably got close to 7-foot wingspans. The length was just it was amazing. I think Mo Bamba set the combine record for wingspan. So
really?
To see that in person was it was incredible. Another person that impressed me, remember we had the conversation about Marvin Bagley playing defense.
Yeah.
And I said, there's a reason why Duke plays zone. Wendell Carter is not the reason why they play zone. Wendell Carter,
love him.
Defensively was so impressive. He was blocking shots. He was closing down. He was just everywhere. And it was, Max Kellerman might have been onto something when he said that, he should have been the number one pick because
he looked really light on his feet, man. That's one thing I noticed immediately was he seemed in excellent shape. And very reactive on both the offensive and defensive sides. I saw him coming into the Bulls rotation being kind of that down low presence, defensively really being the focus. But the guy was stretching the floor. He was giving you some moves off the dribble. His pass game was, on point. And I even saw a few, step back, turnaround jumpers from the mid range. So if he can really be the versatile defensive player, I think we kind of matched him to Al Horford in our draft review. If he can be that guy that just gives you everything, we would have really lucked out. I'll keep my hard feelings about the Michael Porter train and head in the other direction.
I fully expect him to be the starting center come the beginning of the season. So essentially, I guess you've got a lineup of Dunn, Levine, Parker, Markkanen, and Carter Jr. So, like I said, I think they could be the Indiana this year. But Wendell Carter, Summer League, was very impressive. Another guy for your Bulls, the numbers weren't quite there, but Chandler Hutchinson, I believe out of Boise State. Like he just looks like he had the tools to be, a solid player.
Right.
Like he's got the length, he moves well. He looks like he's going to be a pretty good defender. So I didn't know too much about him going to the summer league, but watching him play, he looked like he's an NBA player.
Yeah, that's really what I'm looking for from all our guys next year. Is we need a Boston Celtic vibe. We have to have each guy on the floor confident in their role, and really just taking the next step forward. And hopefully Hutchinson and Carter can be some centerpieces or cornerstones.
So, for sure. And so you've got Hutchinson and Valentine coming off the bench. So you've got you got defensive there. Justin. I don't want to turn this into a Bulls preview, but Justin Holiday's. I think he's more fitted to be a scorer off the bench. So we could keep a solid rotation of shooters and inside out guys. I think we'll be competitive at least in the regular season. Not much going on postseason, but what do you think about? Did you get a chance to see Sexton in person? Or I saw one game of Colin Sexton, and it was against your Bulls. And Archie Giannakou from Villanova.
Yeah, you mentioned he was giving him the business.
He was giving him some trouble. Like, Archie Giannakou looked like a seasoned NBA veteran. And granted, this was Colin's first summer league game, because Cleveland didn't play in the California Classic, or whatever that is, and the Salt Lake. So this was his first game. So you could see there were some adjustments, because as we saw as the summer league went on, Colin had some impressive, performances. But that first game that I watched, it, as we talked about earlier, I'm not a Colin fan.
He still wasn't impressive.
Yeah. So to see the struggles that he had with Archie Giannakou, further confirmed to me. I think he's a good player. He has, things that he can do well, things he can't do well, just like everyone else. My issue is I just don't think he was a lottery pick. I don't think he's talented enough to be a guy that you spend a top 14 pick on. So that's part of my issue. But yeah, Archie was defensively, he was, giving him issues, and then offensively, he was just, running the offense, and the way he was beating Colin, because we know he's not a athletically gifted player, was just, it was very savvy, and so it concerns me because
Colin still has some areas
to fix, and with him being more athletic, because he looked gassed in that game, like running up and down the court with the the body and the way that Archdianaku was playing, you could tell it was tiring Colin out. So that concerns me, because when you go up against real NBA, starting point guards like a Westbrook, like a Curry, like a Damian Lillard, Eric Bledsoe, just to go down tiers, like
you're gonna lose it,
right? You're gonna lose it.
You're gonna lose that quick step.
And it translates to the other side as well, because if you're and that's one of the things, not to make the comparison, but just in general, that's one of the things that how you attack Steph. If you make him work on defense and offensively, he may struggle there because you're using your legs,
he's not
and
getting
your body
to his spots as quickly. The shot's getting tired.
I
could see that. I mean, and that's the case with most first-year players, I would think. Just into the speed of the game has to be the hardest thing.
For sure.
But, I see a guy like him, Trae Young. They're both players that I think will need some time to adjust to the NBA game. Because Colin's doing it with his explosiveness and his off-the-dribble ability, and Trae is doing it with his shooting. Both of those completely change once you're going up against either a 6'4" wing, guy like Russell, or you're driving on a guy like DeAndre Jordan or Rudy Gobert. Those aren't going to be as effective.
With that being said, the thing I always think, though, if you can shoot, you can shoot. Although Trae Young didn't particularly shoot too well in the summer league, I think as he gets accustomed to that game, that'll come along, because I always think of a guy like JJ Redick. Obviously he hasn't scored in the NBA the way he did in college, but if you can shoot, you can shoot. I was able to see 2 Hawks games, and so I think Trae Young is going to be fine. Like, if you watching him play, I think the biggest issue, and I'm putting that in quotation marks, about how he's going to exceed, it's not him. It's how the refs officiate him. Because watching him play, he's so much more savvy than people give him credit for. And he's been saying a lot in the media lately. Like, he's like, I understand the Steph comparisons, but I look at myself more as a Steve Nash. Because, that's the guy that I looked up to growing up. So that's who I saw myself patterning my game after. And that's what I saw a lot of when I watched him play. Like, he has the quickness to get around players and to set up his teammates, and he knows where to find them. It's just a matter of him getting himself into positions where, you're making that jump pass, which is not particularly the best, at your height. Or, you get past your player, but you get a little nudge that, say you're 2 or 3 years in the league, you get that call, as opposed to you're a rookie. Because the games I saw him, they were playing him like very, very tough, and not in it's a hard-nosed defense. It's, you're,
trying to intimidate him physically.
Right, trying to intimidate him. You're number, 5 pick, and, I have to go at you. So I think he's going to be, perfectly fine. It's just a matter of, him adjusting to, the calls. And I think as the season goes on, he'll start to get some of those calls, because he's a dynamic player. So just to go, through Trae Young, I think Atlanta, to me, in a very, like, if you squint your eyes way, you might see it, but they remind me of a poor man's Boston when they had Isaiah Thomas. So you look at, you have a guy who's, supposed to be your, your lead scorer in Trae Young, who's Isaiah Thomas, and then you're surrounding him with defensive players like Ken Bazemore, Taurean Prince, John Collins, whoever they slot in at center, Dwayne Dedman, whoever. But I see that kind of everybody's talking about them being more like, a poor man's Warriors, but to me it looks more like the Celtics.
That's a really
you've
good
got
comparison. Yeah,
a lot of defensive guys, and you're looking for this guy to be a scorer. So I think they've got some interesting things.
Yeah, and I think this is the time for everybody in the East to kind of gather themselves.
What's your 5-year plan?
Right. Just get an idea of who your franchise players could be.
Yeah.
I see a guy like John Collins perhaps emerging.
He was very impressive.
I mean, I saw he was hitting threes. He had some moves off the dribble,
which surprised me because watching him last season, he seemed to me more like just a run and jump guy. In that DeAndre Jordan, JaVale McGee role where okay, he's going to be super athletic, he's going to get blocks, catch lobs, but offensively there's not too much there. But watching him in summer league. Offensively, he clearly took his game to a next level. I want to say as well, watch out for Knicks versus Hawks this year. Him and Mitchell Robinson are going to have a little feud, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, Mitchell Robinson can really play, man. And we talked about Kevin Knox, obviously potentially being the sleeper of the draft.
He was very impressive as well.
How was his, size in person?
And then he was actually sitting 2 rows from me in one of the games, because when you're with the summer league, like the players are literally like right there. As soon as the game finishes, they're walking by, they're walking up the steps to go get chicken fingers, like they're right there. So I did see him. He was literally like almost in touching distance, but just like his facial demeanor just looks like a guy that doesn't want to be talked to. So like I didn't want to go ask for a picture or anything. But yeah, his length was very impressive, and his dribbling skills really caught me off guard, because when I watched him at Kentucky, a lot of the stuff they ran for him were baseline to baseline cuts, 2 dribble pull-ups, but he handles the ball a lot better than I thought he could.
Several plays. I mean, he kind of reminds me of a more compact, smaller Giannis in a few different ways. Can definitely open up on the fast break. But his length and versatility, both on the offensive and defensive sides, that to me is exactly what New York needs right now. Alongside Porzingis, they're both capable of that.
Yeah. I think he's going to fit in.
He's going to get a lot of minutes,
Yeah, with Porzingis. And then as well, they're talking about, I forget who's their coach now, Fizdale. And so he's saying he wants to have a super, large lineup of, and I don't know what the positions would be, but Porzingis, Mitchell Robinson, Kevin Knox. They've got another guy named Luke Cornett, who's, I guess, Steve Novak 2.0. But basically, he's one to throw 4 7-footers out there and see what that. So I think that hey,
they're going the opposite of what's trendy nowadays.
The way the league is going, like you got to try stuff. So I would be interested to see that. But yeah, definitely Kevin Knox was very very impressive as well this summer league.
Anybody else that
Shvi Mikaelu from Kansas?
Yeah,
he looks. I think. He's. I mean, I don't want to put numbers, or in his expectations, but I think he has an NBA ready game. I can see him not numbers wise, but impact wise, coming in the same way Kyle Kuzma did. Because just from a scoring perspective, he just looked very comfortable. Like he knew what shots to take, he knew where to get to his spots on the floor, and it was. Like he just looked like a pro. And I think that was a big steal of the draft. One of the steals of the draft for him, because he definitely showed out in summer league. I'm trying to think of who else. Javon Carter was. I was very impressed with him because I didn't think offensively he had, that ability that he showed, because he was putting up like 20 points, step backs and layups, and I didn't really see that out of him at West Virginia. We all know, he was still guarding people full court, which some of the coaches were like, hey, Bibby and Van Exel on sideline, like, look, this is the NBA, you don't gotta, I know you get 10 fouls in summer league.
But. Right, nah, man, that's yeah, he's a smart player. I think he kind of could be maybe like an Avery Bradley if he, comes along, gets his offensive game a little bit more dynamic.
I think he's the perfect backup. And I said this during our draft review. He's the perfect backup for Mike Conley.
Yeah. Speaking of which, man, that money must be burning a hole in Mike's pocket, because he has had a good bit of time to spend. How do you think teams, some of those teams going into next year that really aren't on a lot of radars, teams like Memphis, you mentioned Denver. I don't know about them this year. Do you think there's anybody that could make a jump going into the next season? Teams like Detroit or Miami.
I do like Memphis because Conley being out most of the year, it put a lot of stress on Marc Gasol, to do things that, he typically wouldn't have done the past season. So I think them having a fully healthy lineup, they signed Kyle Anderson, so anytime you can get Chandler Parsons off the court, that should help the team. And then they've got guys, Jaren Jackson, which, we don't know what he's going to be. We see the potential, but having a Conley and a Gasol and even, my guy Dylan Brooks, I think that only further helps, facilitate his game.
What do you think about Charlotte? They're out of, they got Tony Parker on the roster.
Right. Miles Bridges shot awfully, and like Ben McLemore, 16 for 80, awful. But he had a couple of nice dunks.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys too that he'll have to adjust to the NBA game, but he has some things that immediately translate. His hustle. He's pretty versatile defensively. Kind of puts guys on their toes. We're looking at teams like Orlando who are getting, a second-year guy with Isaac. Bamba has some raw talents that immediately translate his length. Do you think they can make a push with a guy like Aaron Gordon maybe coming into stride?
I think the issue with Orlando is you still don't have a point guard, because point guard play is so essential, and you see it in Summer League as well. That's one of the things they say is that, they typically tend to be a little more lenient on big men in Summer League, because if you don't have a point guard to run the offense, then, you're not really
getting the full maximization out of the players.
So I think that's kind of your issue with Orlando, because, you've got Bamba, Gordon, Isaac. If they love Evan Fournier, that's another conversation. But then you're still stuck with DJ Augustine, and they signed Isaiah Briscoe, who, despite the past 3 years and probably his whole life, still hasn't figured out that he can't shoot mid-range or anything for that.
The sham god is not a pull-up, bro.
Yeah, so I think that's really what's holding them back from making at least a leap, because they've got talent and they've had talent, but that's really what's holding them back from making that leap.
What about Phoenix? I mean, you got the number 1 pick, you got Devin Booker, who, look, the guy at this point has to play a different level of basketball, which to me is leadership basketball. He's been just trying to, I suppose, lead by example.
Right. He's been putting up numbers, which you can do when you're on that kind of space or team. But now, like you said, it's especially with the money they just gave him, you've got to show it out now. So just to go through still talking about people that impressed me, Mikal Bridges looked very well. Like, the Sixers are going to regret giving him up, because he was another guy like Shvi that just looked like, okay, he's ready to come in right now, and whether it be 30 minutes or 15 minutes, he's going to contribute in some way with his length and just his confidence offensively. So Phoenix, I think it's all about what kind of system is this new coach going to run. Because one of the things that bothers me is last year that we saw you have super talented players like Giannis, Devin Booker, Brandon Ingram, who are wings, but the coach was like, hey, why don't we try to play them at point guard so we can put the ball in their hand more?
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Just because Houston put James Harden and called him a point guard, he wasn't. James Harden is not a point guard. He's just a guy that dribbles the ball 20 times and then makes a move. So I don't.
He scores the points.
Yes. that is he. Yeah. Right. So that's one of the things that kind of bothered me last year is when they put Devin Booker at point guard just to get the ball in his hands more. But Phoenix has the talent. Booker, Ayton, Bridges, still got TJ Warren, Josh Jackson, Marquise Chris. Like, the guys are there.
Yeah.
And another guy that they drafted, I believe he was their first pick of the second round, Eli Okobu, is a point guard out of France. He looks really good. And I guess I can see why they let Tyler Ulis go. Because he just looks like he's going to be another guy that's going to come in confidently, and be able to contribute off the bench in his first year. So, whatever.
I thought it was just because he got his ass whooped. We can't keep guys like
Devin Booker with the mask on, mask off.
And that's what we've questioned the past couple of seasons is why they're not better than they are. Why are they not at least at a competitive level with the talent they have?
Yeah.
I don't know how they'll fix that going into the next season because even with a guy like Ayton, I don't know if he takes you there.
No.
He grounds you a little bit. He makes you more of a fundamental basketball team. But yeah, they got to do something about, being playoff ready.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily like LeBron's situation, but this is not this is the year for them to take a step forward, but not to get to the finish line.
Right.
So we'll definitely see.
Hey, Ariza is, he could be a sleeper, influence for them.
Between him and Tyson Chandler, you would think they would have enough wisdom to instill upon these guys to hopefully get them to turn that corner. So it'll be interesting. So that you bring up Ayton, I've got a hot take from watching Summer League. If he wasn't played for this particular organization, I would give him the same expectations as DeAndre Ayton, and I think he'd actually be better than him. But Harry Giles looked really good during Summer League.
Really?
Better than DeAndre Ayton to me. And
really?
If he wasn't playing for if he was playing for any other organization, I would tell you that he's going to be better than DeAndre Ayton. But, he really showed to me why he was the number one player in his class, why he was that number one recruit at Duke. The way he moved on the court was fluid. His offensive game looked poised. He was moving his feet defensively, which I talked about. DeAndre Ayton's defensive highlights were not too impressive.
Yeah,
so
not overwhelming.
Harry Giles, I think, if they can figure out something in Sacramento, which I have no faith that they will, but Harry Giles, I think.
Well, that's nice to hear. He's actually slipped off my radar quite a bit, but I mean, we used to talk about him in his high school days. Completely versatile. Like you said, I think him being a fluid player is exactly what we can label him. Very smooth, but there was always that question mark with him just, constantly being injured.
Yeah.
What would you say his game is now? Does he play more of an inside out? He always had a good, off the dribble game.
He just looked like a modern day four, pick and pop.
Face up a little bit.
Knew when to go down to the block, when he has the mismatch. He really impressed me. So I'm definitely looking forward to him in Sacramento this year. Granted, Bagley, Scal, Cauley-Stein, Kufis. I don't know where he gets in on the court.
He'll slip in.
But I am very looking forward to him getting minutes this year and showing people that, he's still, the talent that we think that he is, a prospect.
Good.
One final guy I wanted to talk about that was a first-year guy that very impressed me, Anthony Simons.
Really?
Yes. So, and this, you can say this about any player. I think his development or how the team develops him will be a big part of it. But you can see it. Like he has an NBA game already. And what's funny is looking at him, you can tell he was straight out of high school. Like, granted, I think he was 1 year out, but he was born in 1999. But so was Gary Trent. But they look like two completely different players watching them out there. Like Gary Trent looked like a guy, okay, yeah, he's played in college. You know, even though he's a freshman, he looked like he's been in college for a year or two. But seeing Simons out there was like, you can tell, like, okay, this kid is fresh from prom. Like,
okay, yeah.
But even with that, like, his game, like, he was confident in his moves. He was confident in his shots. Like, offensively, you could just tell, like, he has that game. It's just a matter of how they develop him and putting him in the right spots. But I think he's going to be a sleeper as well. I see him having very, very big star potential going forward because I was impressed.
Watching him in high school, he reminded me a lot of Fultz.
Yes, I could see that.
You know, they really have the ability to open the floor up. He seemed to have a pretty good shot, but really smooth off the dribble. Could pass. Had a really had the good size as well. Can finish strong. I'm in here doing layup functions. I don't know what I'm doing.
Right?
But he's that's what we talk about when we bring up the conversation of getting guys straight out of high school or out of 1 year removed. If you're able to take the risk, get these guys developed quickly, get them adjusted to the NBA game, it's worth the gamble.
I'm very interested to see the pairing of him and Seth Curry coming off the bench. So, Anthony Simons, top 10 player.
You're gonna keep the hair going? I mean, he was hitting that Iman Shumpert stage last time I saw him.
It looked like it was a little trimmed down. Okay. He looked like Gary Trent's younger brother. So it's I guess it's working for him. So that kind of wraps up the first year players that really impressed me. We're going to take a little break and we'll come back. I'll talk about the second year players of the bullies of Summer League and some of the guys that weren't too impressed by